From the Vegas Golden Knights, this is SLGND, presented by the D Hotel. I'm Dan D'Uva. 7 months of hockey, 33 weeks since Vegas opened its season, 230 days to narrow the field from 32 to the final 2. It's the Vegas Golden Knights and the Florida Panthers for the Stanley Cup. And the gang is all here to talk about it. Shane, Gary, Dave, and me in Studio 31 to filter through how we got here, what the Panthers are all about, and what to watch for in the best-of-7 Stanley Cup Final Series.
What a run it has been for the Golden Knights. Number 1 in the Western Conference during the regular season. Dispatched the Winnipeg Jets in 5. Knocked out the Edmonton Oilers in 6. And now, in the Western Conference Final, they will take the Dallas Stars down in 6 games after leading the series 3-0. Carrier, Carlson, Colasar, Marchessault, Carlson, Amadio. This one is over. 6-0. A shutout victory in Game 6 for the Vegas Golden Knights. For the second time in 6 seasons, the Golden Knights will play for the Stanley Cup. Western Conference champions in 2023, the Golden Knights will play the Florida Panthers in the Stanley Cup Final, starting June 3rd at T-Mobile Arena in Las Vegas.
Hard to believe it. Second time in 6 years, Golden Knights going to the Stanley Cup Final. They will start on Saturday at T-Mobile Arena. Hockey in June. Can't beat it. And the Golden Knights there again as they'll take on the Florida Panthers. Each team looking for its first championship. And as we sit here, guys, it's, boy, it is mind-boggling, bigger picture, Shane, right? This team, you know, we all come here from wherever we came here from 6 years ago because it was some sort of an allure to be part of this from the ground up. I don't know if any of us thought, well, they'll go to the final twice in the first 6 years. That's why I'll make the move.
Oh, it's so hard. And, you know, you've heard the players now really appreciate these opportunities because they do come, but usually not this often, especially to a new organization, but well-deserved. And, you know, this, you know, credit to George McPhee, Kelly McCrimmon for constructing this roster, all their staff, everybody, for the success they've had here heading in, you know, at year 6 right now, which was, I believe the owner talked about that. And now they have that opportunity. So, you know, they can look back to year 1. Maybe that came, didn't really appreciate it or understand. Now you got some of those guys that understand. You've got some winners in that room, a completely different team. But really encouraged maybe by the way they played that last game against Dallas. And Bruce Cassidy said their best performance in the playoffs. Now it's a matter of elevating that because we'll get into the Florida Panthers, but if there's one thing the Panthers seem to not do, that's not take their foot off the gas.
Dan and Gary, you guys called it on the radio, obviously. And Dan, it was, that was a clinic the other night. It was 6-0. It could have been a lot worse than that. The Golden Knights, I don't know if I've seen them play that well this season, let alone in the playoffs.
And the previous 2 games having lost back-to-back for the first time in seemingly forever. And not only the back-to-back losses, but so rarely have we seen them have duds 2 in a row. They bounce back, and oftentimes it's within a game. Look at their second period numbers during the Stanley Cup playoffs. Going into Game 6, it was plus 15. It improved upon that, of course. When you have that kind of bounce-back ability from period to period, game to game, and then even shift to shift, because in the last couple of games, they scored first and then gave up that 1-0 lead. In this instance, in Game 6, of course, they extended the lead and extended, and the Stars did seem out of gas. The Golden Knights did not, and I don't think that they lost the previous couple of games because they were out of gas, but they just adjust so well, and it's top to bottom. You see the contributions of Aiden Hill with another shutout, 2 in the series, or the likes of Keegan Colasar or Mike Amadio, who hadn't played in 8 games. So Will Carrier, like you just go, it can be, and I thought, Dave, what Kelly McCrimmon said to you on the VGK Today podcast about we don't need to rely on one person being the guy. We have several players who can be the guy, and it has happened.
You don't know where the goals are going to come from, Gary, and that was evident again in Game 6, but it's been evident most of the playoffs and most of the season.
You know, I think that's a tribute to, you mentioned McPhee and McCrimmon. This, where they're at right now, the foundation for this was the failure in 2017-18. they weren't as good as Washington.
No.
Washington was better than them, and I think that those two guys looked in the mirror and said, "Okay, what do we got to do?" And the team that lost to Dallas in the bubble, they weren't going to beat Tampa. The team that lost to Montreal in the
short
semifinals
end of the
season,
pandemic,
2020.
right?
Yeah.
They weren't going to beat Tampa either. Like Tampa was going to win. They won both those cups, and I think they were gonna. But I think along the way, McCrimmon and McPhee, they've done this different than. I got a text from your buddy Chris Kerber in St. Louis yesterday.
I got the same text.
And he said, the way they have done this may change the way teams are built and constructed, because they didn't wait around for draft and develop. They had a salary cap. An expansion draft. They got players. 6 of those guys are left, and the rest is draft, trade, free agency, waiver wire. They've done it a bunch of different ways. But that team that lost to Washington didn't have a franchise center, Jack Eichel. It did not have one of those. They
didn't have a legit top 4.
Exactly, and now they do. You look at
They have a top 6.
Yeah. But they didn't have a Pietrangelo type guy, right? Like a Hedman, a Pietrangelo with St. Louis, Carlson with Washington, a guy that plays at both ends of the ice, can produce and can check, and they've got that. He's one of the best in the NHL at being great at both ends. So that failure put them on the course to get here, and not that the other runs weren't fun. This one's different. This is this team. You look at it right now, and I think maybe it's a coin flip for the final. I probably give Vegas a bit of an edge, but when they got there against Washington, everything was going to have to go right for them to beat the Capitals. This team, because of what you just said, they don't have to just rely on one guy. They are deep from top to bottom. They've used 5 goalies. They've got an excellent defenseman in Ben Hutton watching the games. They've got 50 goals in 50 goals from this NHL season in the press box right now. A Hall of Famer in Phil Kessel can't get in the lineup. This is a real good team.
And I want to layer one more thing in, because so many comparisons have been drawn to the inaugural season run. And you said it, Gary, on the radio. I know you said it to Dave on the VGK Today podcast. That first run was magical. This one is methodical. But let's not also forget about the vibe that we've heard, the guys who have expressed over time how much they enjoy playing for one another, that this is a very close
Which was the
group.
same narrative from year one.
And that's what I was going to ask you guys. Obviously, Shane, you played on the team in Boston, and Dave, you covered it. The way that a group sort of congeals and that they play for one another, and you can have superstars, you can have great talent, and sometimes that's enough. Yeah. But that first year's team managed to get where they were because of how much they played for each other. In spite of the maybe talent deficiency, they did win the first game of the Stanley Cup Final. We were all surprised by it. It seemed like they might not have been. And of course, the first time they lost 4 games in a row that entire season, it was their final 4 games of the season. And it does feel different. You have felt that this team could do it. I'm not sure how many of us thought that they could. First time I felt that they could win the Stanley Cup that year was when they won Game 1. And then what happened?
I'll tell you what, Dan, on a quick aside, the Golden Knights recently had their alumni golf tournament, and James Neal was there.
Yeah.
And I hadn't seen him in a long time, so we said a quick hello and chatted a little bit. I thought what you were thinking, all right, they beat Washington Game 1. He scored the first goal of Game 2. That's when I was like, son of a gun.
Yeah.
They could win this whole thing, and then they ended up obviously not winning it. But, I think, there was a magical component to that first year. We talked the other day. I mean, this team's a wagon. This team they have is a wagon right now. And what I've started to think this year is when you look around the playoffs, look, you're going to have to beat some good teams to either get to the final or to win the whole thing. But then you look at, you look around the league. Boston gets knocked out. Colorado gets knocked out. Tampa gets knocked out. They didn't have to play. L.A. kind of gave them some trouble. But they've also taken care of their own. They're a better team than Winnipeg. Edmonton, you look at those, especially those high-end guys, but they were able to get through it. Dallas, I thought they were a better team than Dallas.
I didn't. Yeah, I
thought they're a better team than Dallas.
I think they're a better team. I do. I still do, even heading into this final.
Yeah, now it's,
but being a better team doesn't mean anything. And Florida's probably proved that the best throughout the playoffs on the other side when you look at the East and what they've gone through. But talk about a willingness. And just to go back on what Dan said, it's so true. It sounds so simple to say, well, a team, we all get along, we love to play. Every team does, but there's got to be there's such an integral part to championship teams of that chemistry in the room that can't be overlooked because it is so important about wanting to play for each other and having everybody feel a piece of it. Like the Oilers, if you're on that fourth line, you don't feel like you have a piece of it. They rely on two guys. Golden Knights, and it's been all season long. Even the guys, you're in and out of the lineup, you've had a hand in this team and the success they've had this year, and that is massive to me in that room. And going back, they to me are the more complete team. I think they're better in a lot of areas. Obviously, the X factor for the Floridas right now has been Bobrovsky and the way he's played. Kachuk's had a great run. They've got high end, but they work. The Florida Panthers, they are tenacious on the forecheck. Their work ethic, and again, a team that loves coming to the rink, having fun, similar to the Golden Knights. So I think it's going to be a great final. It's not going to be easy, but I'll tell you, really encouraged with that last game. If the Golden Knights play like that, they're going to give themselves a good chance.
This leads me to, I got a text the other day after Vegas had dropped Game 4 and Game 5. Someone texted me, silver lining, ? And I answered immediately. I said adversity.
Yeah.
They've had to face a little adversity, and adversity is great if you get over it. But that's what Bruce Cassidy, after those two losses, was able to really challenge his team. He said two things: we got to get hard and we got to get serious. Mm-hmm. Well, they did, have they played a better game in 6 years?
No, and I know you guys were there. You didn't get to watch Brock. They went inside the room. Bruce Cassidy's speech before the game was, "We're not chasing matchups. We're playing four lines. You guys are up your jobs to be better than those on the other side of you." And I thought that's like, hey, all right, everybody's in. We're rolling.
Get you fired up, Shane?
I thought it was terrific. So they went in the room, kind of, a little blurb of his speech before Game 6, and that's what he said. So that to the players says, I trust all of you.
Yeah.
Go out there and play our game. We're going to roll four lines, 6D. Aiden Hill's confidence is through the roof right now, even though he said probably the easiest performance he's had to have with the way they defended in front of him. They were but they're going to need that type of game, that type of urgency to give themselves a chance against a very urgent and hard-working Florida team.
You talk about a team that's caught something in a bottle. I mean, they're down 3-1 to the Bruins. We know how they come back. Matthew Tkachuk just seems to score the game winner every night. They make quick work of Toronto, and there's somebody was saying, is there an only sweep in the playoffs? Was there a sweep of Carolina in the East Final? That's
hard to sweep.
Yeah.
Those games were all close.
Yeah.
But, so...
Technically, they played more than 4 games.
Yeah, with the 4. Yeah, right. 4
overtimes.
Yeah. But it's pretty awesome when you think about it. Like, however this is going to work out. You're going to have a new Stanley Cup champ. Someone's going to win it for the first time.
And a first-year head coach with his respective team. Of course, Maurice and Cassidy have been around a long time, but first year with their respective clubs, too.
Yeah, and the media dream come true for anyone covering this series.
Yep.
Fort Lauderdale Beach and the Vegas Strip.
Oh,
Any old chick will go
good.
from the Strip and the sports books here to Gulfstream at Miami, the track there. He's got it made on this series.
There's a new place in Fort Lauderdale. It's called the Elbow, the Elbow something. I don't know.
I haven't
I'd have
heard
to
of
stop over
New
there
place.
at some point.
Yeah.
But, you mentioned Bruce Cassidy and Paul Maurice, but 3 of the 4 teams in the conference final had new coaches.
Yeah.
You throw in Pete DeBoer in Dallas. So that Pete, by the way, had classy comments after the Stars lost. I mean, look, you spend the time, these guys, and you could speak to this, Shane, these guys as a staff, so many hours and the grind every day of trying to get your team ready and try to get them to the ultimate goal. Got a lot of close relationships with the guys on this team.
And I'm sure there's a thought in his head, man, I wish I had this health last year.
Yeah.
Right? A lot of those guys he didn't have. And he knew the potential. So, but as you said, classy for him to say, if we can't do it, I wish a lot of those guys in the room to see them win the cup.
And you've got Bruce Cassidy, who was no longer needed in Boston. And here he is. It's unbelievable. I always say, you can't make this crap up.
No.
And here he is in the Cup final with his new team, and so is Paul Maurice.
And he's done a terrific job.
Yeah.
And when I look at it, and I know Paul Maurice, having worked in Winnipeg, two different stylistic coaches. Bruce Cassidy's, you mean the more accountable, really detailed adjustments, great system. And Cassidy, or Maurice has all that too, but Paul Maurice might be one of the best motivators, one of the best speakers in the game. Like he gives speeches I've heard where guys just want to run through a wall. I remember our communications guy said the first time Paul came in the room and addressed the guy, he said, I was ready to run through the wall afterwards. He's like, it's just, and but Bruce is just an accountability. Like you could tell after games 4 and 5, not in a good mood. Mm-mm. And he always says it's on him to prepare the guys. Well, he certainly did, because game 6, right from that opening shift of that line, who were terrific. Their fourth line set the tone early. And, just excited for this to get started.
It's great stuff. Let me ask you this. So the Golden Knights, we know their strengths. I mean, we've seen it all year. Their depth, their top. They probably have the best defense core in the league. Did anybody have Aiden Hill as the guy that was going to carry them through, what's it now, round 2 rounds of the play?
It just fits in with the theme of this team. Did anybody have the fourth line starting it off the way they did? Carrier, Colasar, scoring goals. Amadio, who'd been out, back in. It just and one guy I got to mention, William Karlsson. Mm-hmm. I don't think there's been a more consistent, complete player all year. I know we're going to say the big names.
I was just about to ask you who's your Vegas Golden Knights Conn Smythe candidate.
Yeah, I got Karlsson right now.
So do I.
Yep, same.
Yeah, in the regular season, 16 goals.
And can we get?
I got that wrong. 14 goals.
Yeah.
14 goals, and he's got 10 in the playoffs, which is a new record. Yeah. And it's not just that, like, he could kind of hold the goals in one hand, but how well he has defended the star offensive players for the other teams. And we talked about this on the radio broadcast the other day. William Karlsson, when you think about what he did in year 1 and the 43 goals and all of that, and how since then the number has basically gone down each year. And when you ask him about how do you think your season's going, and he's, I'd like to produce a little bit more. And I wonder how much you get tied up in the numbers. It's like it's in baseball batting average. You can never quite get back up to where you were in a really hot start of the season. But it's a clean slate when the Stanley Cup playoffs start. That number is 0. And he has, of course, now his most productive postseason compared to the first few years, including year 1. And I wonder how much that clean slate has allowed him to be that kind of player that has been fantastic, as he has been, at both ends of the ice.
Well, and it allows better matchups, right? Playing in that slotted, technically third line if you want. But and just back to Aiden Hill, I'm going to get rid of one of my pet peeves and you guys probably have it all year. He's been great for these guys, but let's get rid of the narrative of everybody who doesn't know. He wasn't 4th, 5th string.
Oh,
he was
there.
It was Logan Thompson and him were 1A, 1B, and then he was kind of the backup. So let's going to go the deepest he was number 2 as a goal.
Well, in March, before he got hurt, I think that just about everyone in the organization thought this guy's going to be the goalie on game 1 of the playoffs, and the organization is in really good shape if that is the fact. Brossoit got healthy while Aiden was injured, and boy, he did a wonderful job. When he got hurt, for a second I was worried about Aiden in that game because you're going in cold, but long term, I was like, well, this is actually the guy that should be here right now.
And it seemed like he had found himself in that stretch late February and into early March. The injury was the last game that he played against the Florida Panthers in Florida, made 40 out of 42. And at that stretch, you look at the 8 games that he played down the stretch before the injury, 6 wins out of 8, and a save percentage in that stretch of .927. And, what he has done in the Stanley Cup playoffs, it's over .930. And now has 2 shutouts. He had no shutouts in a Golden Knights uniform until the last series.
Save him up for the right time.
Well, remember earlier in the playoffs, too, when Quick was backing up Brossoit, and it was in the Winnipeg series, right? And
early on,
we're like, wait a minute. Now Hill's backing up Brossoit. Well, you got a guy with 2 cups in Quick, but they felt that at this stage of his career and at Hill's career, Hill was the better option if it got to that option, and sure as hell he got to that option.
Early on, the vibe that we got and just chatting with some of the coaches and Bruce Cassidy said, you want Quick's wisdom to be there for Brossoit, who hadn't been in that spot
I think
before.
It's been a terrific.
I just want to say,
terrific.
I got told yesterday, Jonathan Quick has had a huge impact on Aiden Hill, and what Shane was saying. And the person said, you want internal competition during the regular season, but when you get into a playoff series, you don't want the guy on the bench wanting the other guy to fail so that he can get in. And Jonathan Quick has supported Aiden Hill, has advised him.
Yeah, tons of advice to give, right?
Kept him level. There's NHL Network was all over Hill after Game 5 because the one shot that went off of Petrangelo's stick. Bruce Boudreau and E.J. Raddick, both of them. Oh, this is the hole. This is the flaw. He's going to have confidence issues. Now Ottinger's going to steal 2 games. That was their narrative. Aiden Hill looked down the ice at Ottinger in that series, said, I'm going to outplay you. And he did. Big time.
Yeah, some of the big saves that he made, even though it was a loss and he gave up the 4 goals, some of his best saves, if you were to make a highlight pack of the best saves of the series, were in that game.
Fantastic.
The save on
Hints.
Rope Hints.
Right. And then that was a glove one.
Glove
diving to his
Oh,
left.
my gosh.
Yeah.
And I said this, Gary, we talked about this on the VGK today after Game 6. It gets lost sometimes in a 6-0 butt kicking in that 6th game, but the redirect Ben had late in the first period, that Hill made that, he kind of backed it.
Timely.
If that gets to 3-1, and maybe I'm scarred from watching a Bruins team blow a 3-0 lead in the series and a 3-0 lead in Game 7. Yeah. But the Flyers got it to 3-1 before the end of the period, so I'm sitting up there watching. I'm saying, all right,
here we go.
Get to the end of the period 3-0.
Yeah.
And they got to the end of the period.
Yeah, I like the upright right pad save, and White Cloud got a piece of a shot, and Hill got the right pad. I don't know the last time we saw an upright pad save, but there it was. He was doing it every way.
1983.
He's a good guy too.
Yeah. Well, it's funny, Shane. We don't really much at all play golf with the players. No. It's just not our thing. But when they brought over Aiden Hill, we got paired up with him at Red Rock Country Club back in late September.
Yeah.
And we don't really know him.
Yeah.
And
nice, great guy, very calm, and that's what you need.
And now here it is. It's
real good demeanor.
It's almost June. And
good demeanor for a goalie.
He's the guy.
The trade to acquire Aiden Hill for a 4th-round pick from the Sharks.
And Gary, we say, well, remember we were here, and it was great.
We were standing at
got
our
Aiden
desk,
Hill.
and we get the text, hey, we're going to announce acquired Aiden Hill for a 4th-round pick, and you weren't there, Dan, but Shane and Dave and I were standing there and we're going, Aiden Hill? So then we all sat down and started doing a little bit of research, and the first thing that kind of, and then some stuff started to leak out from Hockey Ops, and one of the analytics that they had on him was that he got the quality of opposition that he got in his starts was really high, because basically he was on bad teams and he was the number 2, and they would say, well, we're playing Vegas, we're not going to win, we're going to run Aiden Hill out there. And he had almost a 9-10 save percentage over those 2 seasons with Arizona and San Jose, and so the teams were terrible, and he played against really good teams. So that was kind of the nugget that they uncovered, that, and Sean Burke knew him.
And that Hill also was injured the second half of last year. You know, the beginning of last season, he and Reimer were kind of the guys beginning of the year, and he, the goalie and injuries, he did not get to finish that season in the way that he might have hoped. And you mentioned Sean Burke and that history, just the calming influence that he's been for all of these goaltenders, just terrific. Strikes the perfect chord for the mentality that you'd hope to have in a goaltender.
Let's talk Florida a little bit. Matthew Tkachuk has been unbelievable in clutch situations for them. We kind of throw it to you this way, Shane. If Florida is going to prevail in this series, what's going to have to happen for them, do you think?
Well, they're going to need Bobrovsky to play the way he did. But can he keep up this pace? I think it's taking advantage. I like the forward group of Florida. I think they play hard. They've got, even a veteran, line with Eric Stahl centering the Lombard that brings energy. They're spread out up front. You've got the Bennett and Tkachuk pairing. You always look at the pairings, right? Barkov, I think he's an elite two-way player. That Reinhart line with Lundell and Luosterainen they've been excellent for this team. So depth up front, but their blue line's played well. Ekblad's top guy. I think Montour's had a great season. More offensive, though, than defensive. Mark Stahl's kind of there. Gudis is going to work hard. Who's the other guy? Forsling.
Yep.
So it really doesn't jump off the page. They're more of a group. You look at them, and it's okay, but they get the job done. So, but I think that's one area they got to try to expose, and it's about playing the right way. Puck management's going to be key. They want to play. It's going to be the same mentality: get behind, play hard, make plays off the cycle. Create chances in the ozone. Get in Bobrovsky's face. They're going to have to find ways to beat him because, to me, he's been their best player along with Tkachuk. And I think, Bobrovsky, since he came in, his numbers are just crazy. I think I heard somewhere that they haven't had a goalie put up these type of numbers since they started keeping stats like the analytics.
The last 10 years.
Yeah, 10 years. So can he keep that up?
The last 15 years since they started those that tracking, his 10-game block is the best
of
that period. We were listening to the same show, just not together. Tkachuk's a rat. Cousins is a rat. And
Bennett. That's the line. That line you got to be.
That's not a derogatory term. That's a compliment. It's a role in hockey. They got three of them that are really good at it. They're going to try and start stuff up after
control the motion
after whistles. So discipline going to be very important for the Golden Knights. Picture Nick Hague laughing at Max Domi as Max Domi punched him in the face. That's what they got to do.
And I'll throw Radko Gudas into it.
Gudas as well, yes.
Just that photograph.
He's not a rat, though.
He's not a rat, but
he'll show up.
That's why I say snarl. Because, it's a different element of it where, that still frame right in front of the Toronto goalie there. That was a great photograph. But there is that element with different players. There will be more of that aspect of the game
after whistle
compared to
scrums
Dallas.
It's going to be big time. They're going to try and drag Vegas into the penalty box. The two numbers that stick out, what's the power play at right now? Like 17%, and the penalty kill is in the 60s.
Yeah. Penalty kill's not good, but a lot of that. Edmonton just destroyed.
Winnipeg really good in the power play. Edmonton the best, and Dallas right behind Edmonton. Yeah. And it's gotten better as they've gone along. But Edmonton scored just every time they got a power play.
Like the Golden Knights have all regular year. Playoff, same thing, 5-on-5.
Yeah.
They've dominated 5-on-5. They've scored 62 goals in the playoffs. 49 have come at 5-on-5.
Yeah. Their 5-on-5 for and against average is over 2. Like it's like 2.62 per game. Yeah. Something like that. Like that's where all their production comes from. And and as the playoffs have gone on, the penalties have become fewer and fewer and fewer. And the guys that are reffing the games, like Hansen and who did it the other night? Trevor Hansen and
Kelly Sutherland.
They called almost nothing. Mm-hmm. Macaulay and O'Rourke the game before, they called almost nothing. It was a real key for the Golden Knights not to play the Oilers in the first round because the referees in the first round, They call more penalties in the first round, fewer in the second, fewer in the third, and then fewer.
And a lot of that, not only that, teams adjust the playoff style as well as the rounds go.
And you'd rather have that. Like I always, it's not an easy. Stay out of the way. Yeah. Let them decide it. If it's something egregious, obviously, but it's
broken or bleeding. Blow the whistle.
Yeah.
Other than that,
play on. Nothing to see here. Well, it's going to be just a phenomenal series. Great event. You talk about the Golden Knights in their 6th year of their existence, and you've got the Panthers haven't been there since 1996. They were still very early in their existence, going to the Stanley Cup Final,
and then got swept by
Colorado. So it's been a long, long time coming for them to get back to this stage. But for the Golden Knights, just an incredible opportunity. We mentioned it earlier, guys. 2018, there was the mystique, the magic. This team this year, the way they're built, man, what an opportunity. And you mentioned it, Shane, there's a guy that said Cup in 6, and if that happens, they won't be able to print enough T-shirts and hats and whatever you want to sell that says Cup in 6. Be phenomenal if it happens. Still a ways to go, though. 4 more big ones. All gets underway at T-Mobile Arena Saturday night. You guys will have it on the radio. Friends at TNT will have it on the TV sets. We'll be there, Shane, loitering in somebody's suite.
We'll be there. Yep.
Jesus Lopez
Jesus
in the
will have it.
Spanish.
Yep.
All 7, as many games as it takes, he'll be there as well.
Yep.
So,
It's buckle up. Going to be another great ride, and hopefully, boy, it's hard not to think about what this could turn into. Hopefully, it's something real good.
One game at a time.
Thank you very much.
One game at a time.
And one podcast at a time. That's it for this one. We'll talk to you next time on SLGND.
Stanley Cup Final, Game 1, Saturday in Las Vegas. Game 2, Monday in Vegas. All games, home and away, begin at 5 p.m. Pacific Time. And for those games at T-Mobile Arena, the Golden Knights encourage fans to arrive early, stay late, and wear gold. 5 o'clock starts for each game, and radio pregame at 4 p.m. on Fox Sports Las Vegas, 98.9 FM and 1340 AM, and affiliate radio stations on the Vegas Golden Knights Radio Network. Beyond the live broadcast, follow Golden Knights Radio on Twitter at VGK Radio Network for highlights, interviews, and more. For additional VGK podcasts, search Golden Knights Radio and VGK Today on your favorite podcast platform. Also find us on SoundCloud, soundcloud.com/Vegas Golden Knights. For Shane Hnidy, Gary Lawless, and Dave Goucher, I'm Dan D'Uva. This has been SLGND, presented by the D Hotel.